Why, hello, little ones. It's a pleasure to see you again. Have you been well since the last time that we were together? I do hope so. We care ever so much about each and every one of you. That's why we created the safe space, so that no matter where you go or where you are, you'll always have a place to come and listen to our stories. And if you have a sheep on the wall, be a part of the safe space. Now then, since the last time, we've had a great number of those sheep join us. Would you like to see? You would? Excellent. All right, let's have a look, shall we? I see Aaron and Alice and Alicia and Andrew, Amalia, Amelia, Amy, Andrea, Angel, Anne, Ash, Beep, Billy, Blue, Brownie, Bunny, Candy, Cara, Carol, Cassie, Chantel, Charlie, Christopher D, Claire, Cody, Connor, Crystal, Danny, Diana, Dodie, E, Elliot, Emily, Eve, Evelyn, Finn, Freak, FTM, Glitter, God's Angel System, Gracie, Hannah, Hyphen, Isabel, Jack, Jaxie, John, Jenny and Jane, Kai, Karen, Kate, Kinsu, Kit, Lammy, Left, Leo, Lily, Little Llama, Lizzie, Luca, Lunar System, Marigold, Mason, Maribel, Mia, Minnie, Misty, Nikki, Nobody, Nothing, Orchid, Oscar, Oxys, Pan, Pearl, Pippin, Potato, Raja, Rosie, Scarlet, Sarah, Seven, Sierra, Shicey, Sunny, Sunshine, Susie, Timmy, Titch, Thomas, Torin, Tutu, and Yuki. What wonderful names! And do you know what? Those are all your names. Those are your names in the flock on the wall. That way you can always be a part of the safe space, no matter what. Now then, this time I thought we'd read a wonderful story about a little dog who did great things. But whatever I done with it? It's not over here by the flock and the tree, and it's not over here by Bitsy and Betsy in the castle. I wonder where it could be. I know. Let's have a look in the chest, shall we? Excuse me, Mr. Bear, we'll have to move you temporarily. Isn't he a lovely bear? He's so terribly pink, and he has this perfectly lovely heart with a terribly important word written on it. Do you know what that word is? Yes, it's love. L-O-V-E. Love. And love is a terribly important word to remember because you are loved. All right, Mr. Bear, we'll have to set you down momentarily while we open up the chest. What's this? More books. And sure enough, here's the book we're looking for. Kerry, the Firefighting Dog. We'll let you hold that, Mr. Bear, while we close up the chest, so you'll have a place to sit and listen to the story too. Up you go. Excellent. Now then, are you ready? Do you have your blankie or your stuffie or your favorite toy? If not, go and get them. We'll be right here waiting for you. Do you have them now? Excellent. All right, everyone gather round, snuggle up, and put your best listening ears on as we read Kerry, the Firefighting Dog. Kerry, the Fire Engine Dog, by Frank Lewis and Alfred J. Corchia. Illustrated by Dorothy Grider. This is the story of Kerry, a real dog who became the mascot of the Hook and Ladder Company No. 29 of the New York City Fire Department. Kerry was a dog who did not have a home. He had no one to care for him or to feed him. He had long, dark, shaggy hair. On his wide chest was a large white spot. He was big and strong. His brown eyes looked at you as if to say, "May I be your friend?" But he did not have any place to live. One day he was walking wearily along, wishing he had a good dinner and a nice place to sleep. "Hello there," came a voice from a doorway. It looks like you need some rest and a good meal." Before Kerry knew what was happening, 2 big hands lifted him up and carried him inside. Kerry saw a man dressed in a blue uniform with shiny buttons. "Sit down here and I'll get you some supper," said the man. He took a bowl of milk and a big juicy bone from the table and gave them to Kerry. "Bow!" said Kerry after he had eaten his supper. That was his way of saying thank you. Then he looked around him. He was in a strange place filled with big red fire trucks. One truck had great long ladders on the side and the top of it. Another fire truck had a hose on it. He saw more men in blue uniforms with shiny buttons. They were talking with the man who had given him his supper. They called the man Jim. After a while, Fireman Jim came over to Kerry. "If you want to stay here in the firehouse," he said, "you'll have to be cleaned up a bit. How about a nice hot bath?" Kerry did not think much of that idea. But before he could run away, Fireman Jim picked him up and put him into a large tub of water. That night, Fireman Jim put a blanket in a box for Kerry. He put the box in the bunk room where the firemen slept. That was the first bed that Kerry had ever had. Oh, goodness. Look, Kerry's in the tub there, and Jim is scrubbing him. Kerry doesn't look too pleased with it, does he? As usual, one fireman stayed downstairs on watch duty. He sat at a desk near a big bell. His duty was to answer the telephone and listen for the bell, which meant there was a fire. All the other firemen took their rubber boots off of the big red fire truck. They carried them upstairs to the bunk room and undressed for bed. They fixed their boots inside the legs of their trousers and put them beside their beds. Then they all went to sleep. Late that night, Kerry was dreaming of a big beefsteak when a loud bell woke him up. "Get out!" the man on watch shouted to the firemen. "Fire at Maple and Elm Streets!" All around Kerry, the firemen were springing from their beds. They were jumping into their trousers and large rubber boots. Fireman Jim ran and took hold of a big shiny pole with his hands. Then, zip! He disappeared through a big round hole in the floor. "Bow!" barked Kerry. He could not understand what was happening. Then another, and another, and another of the firemen disappeared down the pole hole. Kerry could hardly believe his eyes. When the last of the firemen had gone, Kerry ran to the big shiny pole too. He looked through the big round hole in the floor. Down below was a red fire truck. The firemen were scrambling up on it. Kerry wanted to follow them, but he was afraid of the pole. He ran to the stairway and rushed down head over heels. As he got to the bottom of the stairs, the big red fire truck with Fireman Jim and all the other firemen on it pulled out. The fire truck made a terrible clatter. Clang, clang, clang! Woo! Clang, clang, clang! Woo! Kerry stood in the doorway and watched it go. "Oof," he said sadly. How he wished he could have gone with the firemen. When the firemen came back, Kerry was standing forlornly in the doorway. Fireman Jim patted him on the head. "Next time the alarm rings, Kerry, I'll take you with me. Think you'd like that?" "Bow!" said Kerry happily, wagging his tail. The next night, when everyone was fast asleep, Kerry woke up suddenly. "Ding, ding, 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 ding," rang the fire bell loudly. The next moment, Kerry felt Fireman Jim pick him up in his strong arms and run for the pole hole. He tucked Kerry under one arm and put his other around the pole. Zip! Down the pole they went, right through the floor with all the other firemen following. They all jumped up onto the big red truck. "Bow!" barked Kerry happily. Fireman Jim, who drove the fire truck, showed Kerry where to sit. On the front seat, right by him. How proud Kerry was. "Bow! Bow!" he barked. "This is the life for me." He looked straight ahead. He was going with Fireman Jim, and he was ready to help. Clang, clang, clang. Woo! Clang, clang, clang. Woo! Such excitement. Look, do you see Kerry there? He's riding next to Fireman Jim. He looks happy this time, doesn't he? Soon the truck stopped by a house that was on fire. Smoke was pouring from the windows. Looks like a bad fire, Kerry, said Fireman Jim as he leaped from the big truck. Off came the big water hose from the truck. Fireman connected the hose to the big red fire engine and to the fire hydrant on the corner. Other firemen stretched a hose from the fire truck to the burning house. Up went the ladders. 2 firemen ran up to the roof with a long hook and a big axe. Into the house hurried Fireman Jim, Kerry with him. "Start the water!" shouted the captain. While the firemen were pouring water on the fire, Kerry thought he heard a whimper. Through the smoke he ran to the cellar where the sound was coming from. Woof! Woof! Kerry heard coming from the corner. Then he knew it was a dog in trouble. When he got to the corner of the wood bin, he found not only a dog, but 3 puppies, too. He grasped one of the puppies in his mouth and carried it through the smoke-filled cellar, up the stairs, and out the doorway. He put the puppy down and ran back for another. Then he ran back through the smoke for the 3rd time. He met the mother dog with a puppy in her mouth trying to find the stairs. Just as she got to the bottom step, she fell. Kerry picked up the puppy she was carrying and brought it out to the fresh air. Then he hurried back and started to pull the mother dog up the stairs. He was struggling to get her out of the cellar when Fireman Jim stumbled over him. "Is that you, Kerry?" he cried. "What are you doing here?" But poor Kerry was too tired to answer. Then Fireman Jim gently carried both the mother dog and Kerry out of the cellar. The mother dog and her 3 puppies were safe, thanks to Kerry. He was a hero. How proud he was when Fireman Jim called him up beside him on the seat of the big red fire truck. "You are our mascot," Fireman Jim told Kerry. Then Fireman Jim took from his pocket a little shiny helmet on a silver chain. It was a helmet just like the one the firemen wore, except that it was tiny and made of silver. Fireman Jim fastened it around Kerry's neck. How the crowd cheered! From that day on, Kerry was a member of Hook and Ladder Company number 29. The firehouse was his home. The firemen bathed him and brushed him. They gave him his meals, and Kerry slept every night in a nice, clean bed. And every time the alarm rang, Kerry and his fireman friends jumped on the big red fire truck and dashed down the street to a new fire and new adventures. Look, you see, there's Kerry sitting on top of the fire truck with the crowd cheering. Ah, and there's Fireman Jim giving Kerry a pet. Doesn't he look proud of Kerry? The end. Wasn't that a wonderful story? Kerry the firefighting dog sitting there in the fire engine. He's the hero of the day, isn't he? And there's Fireman Jim giving him a pat on the head. Quite the achievement for a little lost dog, don't you think? And do you know, it's a true story. Kerry indeed was a real dog and did serve as the mascot of Hook and Ladder Company number 29 in New York for a great many years. Do you know, it can be like that on the inside as well as the outside sometimes. We must remember that even the littlest of us can be just as important as the oldest brother and sister on the inside, and that if we're not afraid to try, just like Kerry was not afraid to rescue the puppies and their mother, we can do great things together. So, little ones, don't be afraid to speak up for yourself, and older brothers and sisters, keep in mind that perhaps even the littles might have something important to say. I think that would be a good thing to do. Don't you? Well, little ones, that's all for this time. We'd like to thank you for coming to visit us in the safe space, and thank your older brothers and sisters on the inside for letting you do so. Now, before we go, we have 3 very important things to remember, don't we? And I thought it would be an excellent idea if we all said them together. So, always remember that you are loved, that you are strong, and that you are not alone. I'm Percival. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.